perhaps one of the best things to come out of this is the mistakes that are being made. I think with virtual production, as it's such a new technology, there's myriad amount of things that can go wrong and things that perhaps had we have had the hindsight we would have done differently, but these are all part of the process, and I think that's fundamentally why we're doing this project, is to experiment, to get things wrong, to work out where the kinks in the workflow are, and to sort of pass that advice on for future graduates and for people looking to be involved in this kind of workflow.
There's been a lot of workflow, not problems, but challenges to work with. Seeing it here through the lens, actually against the backdrop, that's the only way you can really visualise what you're going to capture.
These guys have actually done a fantastic job. It wasn't plug and play, but pretty much everything they had done was optimised beforehand. All we had to do was make their world talk with the real world, which obviously, you know, because they're game designers, so they've never thought about, they wanted to shoot in 60 FPS. But the biggest issue has been getting Disguise to talk with Unreal.
They had people who had used Unreal for gaming environments but not film. So although it was a challenge, again, it was exciting to see how they creatively overcame that to come up with the work they have.
Sometimes when we put things on the wall, we think they look great, and then we come back to it and we're like, oh, it doesn't actually look that great. So then we have to figure out a way of adjusting that in Unreal and then looking at it on the wall and seeing how that affects it. So that's all been our kind of day-to-day processes that we've been doing at the moment.
The other major challenge, I think, is obviously lighting, and working with a gaffer and a DOP in a traditional sense to try and match the digital content on the screen.
Yes, I'd use the foundational techniques of lighting, but at the end of the day, it's mainly trying to match the environment and the lighting, and that can sometimes prove to be a puzzle. But me and Chris, he helps so much as well, and we figure it out and we find the right place and make it match as much as we can to make sure it doesn't look like it's studio lighting.
While the wall gives off a lot of light and it is useful for fill, and that, you know, is one of the benefits of VP, is that it's lighting the environment and the actor. We actually needed more light than we were getting from the screen. So trying to motivate a light source where there is already a screen, you can't go and put a light there.
I think almost like your production time, your testing time should be split between technical setup and creative setup, if you like. So testing not only the technology in the first part, but also the actual framing and lighting and implementation of the backgrounds into the shot as well. Otherwise you end up doing that on the shoot days, and that immediately puts you behind.
Starting all of your shots from Unreal and working up to the studio room, that's essential. And then yes, if budget requiring, you need a set that works. You need depth in that room.
I think having spent some time in post-production and looking back at the shots, I think it's really evident now that when embarking on a virtual production shoot, we would definitely need to have a better understanding of the studio layout, the size of the wall, and that would have allowed us to think about how we can fill the space between the camera and the wall with assets and props.
The cameras that they'd use as well were like game cameras. They were optimised for a game setting. And so what we'd do is we would bring in cameras. There's a unique way we need to do it for render stream. And so it's a case of finding out where are those boundaries, what can we do, what can't we do.
I think it's quite difficult sometimes for one to sort of look at that screen and realise that is your shot. And that introduces a whole sort of another series of pressures onto the production shoot process.
The main ones that stand out to me probably would be the beginning, where we needed to storyboard the entire narrative around a virtual production treatment. The pre-planning process was longer than we anticipated, but it also emphasised the importance of pre-planning and that you do it right, and it makes the shoot so much more succinct.
I think this model is definitely a really interesting and really successful way of teaching this workflow, and I think that it's essential that graduates and junior artists who are new to the industry have some kind of experience like this. Having access to these kinds of graduate schemes I think is essential for training the artists that are going to work on these shoots tomorrow.